Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live event entitled Life Redefined, an online film discussion with young adult brain tumor survivors. This amazing event has been generously sponsored by Selectpath Professional Financial Services. We can't wait to connect with you all through our Facebook chat. My name is Todd Gould. I am the Information and Support Services Specialist here at Brain Tumor Foundation. Joining us throughout the week for this Facebook Live event is Dr. Mike Lang, who is a researcher, film director, producer, and digital storytelling specialist. And our special guest today is Alicia Grace Chenier, who is an ECE graduate, motivational speaker, an advocate for low vision and blindness, as well as an advocate for people who are diagnosed with brain tumors. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Todd. Man, here we are almost halfway through the digital stories this week. And I'm really excited and looking forward to sharing your story, Alicia, with everyone tonight and having a conversation with you afterwards because you have a really infectious energy. And I love that. I know it's going to be a great conversation. And also your story, you know, it has some really profound pieces of wisdom in it that we'll get to explore together. So I'm excited for that. And as always, for everyone who's watching, please think about one thing that resonates with you in the story and put it in the chat so that we can all reflect together and learn from Alicia's experiences and yeah, just be part of that conversation so that we can learn from each other. So here we go. You ready, Alicia?
Absolutely.
It's time. Alicia's story, everyone. Here we go.
At 6 months old, I was diagnosed with a rare childhood brain tumor. By 8 months old, I had my first surgery and started chemo. By 18 months old, I had a craniotomy, leaving my tiny head with a scar from ear to ear. This story was written for me, remembered and captured in time through the photos and journal my grandma created. What I do remember is the hospital becoming my second home. Hearing words like pituitary gland, Ommaya reservoir, and craniopharyngioma. Going to the hospital for regular appointments, brain scans, needles, and tests became my normal. Instead of advent calendars of chocolate, mine were blister packs of medication. But to me, there was no story to tell. It was all just my normal life. I clearly remember when things began to change. It was during a day of testing at the hospital during grade 8. It felt like the longest day of my life. The waiting room was so quiet. I could hear the tick, tick, tick of the clock on the wall. But I thought, at least I'm not at school today. My mind played through the scenarios of the past few months. Getting tripped in the hall. Being asked if I would feel if my blind eye got hurt. Being teased about having a brain tumor. My parents splitting up. The quiet waiting room was helping me escape all those things for a while. But the time was slipping away. When we finally got to see the doctor, I had trouble understanding all the huge words, so it was even clearer when he said something I did understand. I don't think she will graduate high school, and she'll most likely end up in a special needs class. I left the hospital that day feeling so confused, discouraged, and ashamed. I felt hopeless. But I also knew that I couldn't allow doctors, bullies, and adults to write my story anymore. I would be the author of my own story. At the end of grade 8, I decided that I wanted to go into a performing arts high school where I could express myself and learn in a way that I would enjoy through theater. At that school, I was able to better my grades, and instead of getting C's and D's, I got straight A's. Graduating with honors before going into college and graduating from there too. 10 years later, I saw that same doctor who once told me I wouldn't and I couldn't. I told him that I could and I did, despite living with a brain tumor and having 3 more surgeries since that last time we see him. Today, at 22 years old, I am now an early childhood educator and motivational speaker advocating for and supporting children with disabilities. I hope that everyone who hears my story will understand that even though the first chapters can be written for us, it is possible to become the authors of our own life story.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. Wow. Alicia, so much in there. I love your story. And you know, one of the things I think that immediately stands out to I think everyone that watches it is you know, that idea of someone else writing our story for us, right? I mean, how often in life do we let that happen? And not recognize that we are the author, right? And I love the title, and I loved how you wove it all together with the journal that was written for you. So tell us a little bit more about how that came about. Where did this idea come from for your digital story?
Yeah, so my story was written at a young age for me, and like, you know, having that brain tumor diagnosis, kind of, you know, going through the notions of the treatments and the surgeries and all of like the medications, that is already written for me. And that's kind of like a part of my story that can't be unwritten.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like rewriting my life around it and making it the story that I want to create. And I think with my drama background as well, you know, taking back my control to really rewrite that whole story.
Yeah, you know, the other, you can't unwrite something. That's a great way to put it, right? You can't unwrite it, but you can rewrite it differently, right? And what a wonderful idea to think about, you know, that we can't control what happens to us, but we can choose how to tell the story. And I love that that's exactly what you did in your digital story. So yeah, you know, you also mentioned in there a little bit about sort of some of the bullying that you experienced when you were in school. And now obviously you are an educator yourself, you know, and so, you know, tell us a little bit more about sort of, you know, the context around the bullying, and then also maybe how that's influencing where you are now, working with the kids that you are now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So at a young age, I grew up in a time where disability and brain tumors were not talked about. And it was kind of like people knew about it, they were aware of it, but it wasn't normalized back then. And it was a very like hush hush thing, like, oh, she's blind, but you know, we also can't kids were not taught that about inclusion back then. Inclusion wasn't a top priority. And you know, having that brain tumor, like I was always the child who was going to the hospital. And honestly, at that time, I didn't understand, because I thought all kids went to the hospital like I did, because that is what I grew up with. And so, you know, getting bullied and having my white cane as well, like I hid myself for so many years. And me, like a part of me becoming an educator is, you know, the kiddos that I help and support now, like some of them have low vision, some, you know, brain tumors, and they still say, you know, I was bullied at school today because I used my white cane, or I was bullied because of this or that. And for me, I want to help them rewrite their stories, and, you know, kind of rewriting my past in them, right? And helping them be the authors at, I guess, at a younger age, rather than, you know, and you know, really pushing that inclusion and normalizing brain tumors and also disabilities.
Yeah. I mean, that is hard to hear, that, you know, however many years later, that's still something that you're hearing from the kids that you work with. Right. And I mean, it shows there's still work to do, right? There's lots of work to do, even though there has been steps made sort of in that inclusion sort of world, there's still lots to be done. Yeah. Well, you know, I wanted to pull Todd in here. And Todd, you know, share something, you know, as someone who works with people who've experienced brain tumors a lot, what resonated with you in Alicia's story? What stood out to you?
Yeah, well, you both of you already raised this, and I think, you know, those who are impacted at such a young age with a brain tumor diagnosis, their life is prescribed, or they feel that their life is prescribed to them in such a way where, you know, this is what's going to happen, and this is likelihood of what is, you know, what your life is going to be like, and they just don't understand the impact that has on an individual, right? Saying like, oh, you will probably most likely not graduate grade 8. You know, that short sentence, you know, probably was said in passing with that doctor or that healthcare professional. But for Alicia and for your story, it was that one thing that you remembered, and that one thing, though, you know, painful and hurtful, you just defied what that person said, you know, and you're just such a role model for you know, young adults, as well as those who are diagnosed as a child with a brain tumor. And I just really appreciated hearing that story, Alicia, and thank you again for sharing it.
Thank you, Todd. Am I able to add something to that? I think like for me, because like, you know, I was diagnosed at such a young age, like it's literally all I've ever known. There's no life before my brain tumor kind of thing. Like I was 4 and going to school and be like, hi, I'm Alicia, I have a brain tumor. And I would say it so excitedly, because that's just my personality. But the teachers would be like, like, what is
really?
going
Wow.
on? But I think a part of it is resilience as well. And, you know, having that diagnosis at such a young age. I know many brain tumor fighters and survivors who were diagnosed at a very young age like me. And the resiliency that comes out of us is like, it's stronger than anything. And I think that is something like, you know, as we grow in age, our resiliency also grows. And we're always bouncing back from this and getting through the days.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Always bouncing back. It's not a one-time thing, is it? Right. It is something that's ongoing. And I think you see that in your experience, right? You know, there's moments where you bounce back and then you fall down a little bit and then you bounce a little higher next time, you know? So I love that idea of it being an ongoing process, you know? And I love what you said, Todd, about it might've just been a little offhanded comment from a physician, but that's what Alicia remembered all these years later. And I think it really just reminds me of the importance of language and you know, when kids are in the room, you know, to know that they're listening and they're a part of that too, whether we
absolutely
or not, right? And wow. Well, Alicia, man, this is awesome. But we got to hear just a little bit just to wrap up here. What are you up to these days? Where are you now? You know,
So I actually just had my 6th brain surgery 2 weeks ago. Prior to this, so I've had that, and despite that, like, I'm going to be going into radiation, but because of this resiliency and me wanting to just keep moving forward, I applied to university so I can specialize in working with children with disabilities and the disability community.
Yeah,
right.
Amazing.
Yeah. Wow. In the middle of treatments and surgeries, going to university. I mean, why not? I mean, that sounds like an Alicia type of thing.
Why not? You can't pause life with a brain tumor diagnosis.
You can't. That resiliency just keeps building, right, Alicia? After a while, boy, that's awesome. Amazing.
Very cool. Great. Well, Todd, I'll pass it to you to wrap up here.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Alicia, for taking the time to share your story with us. You know, like, you can't help but be inspired by hearing your story and hearing the community chat within Facebook as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mike, for facilitating this great event. And thank you again to Selectpath for sponsoring this event as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Awesome. All right. See y'all later. Bye.
See you.